Good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to another exciting and happy talks. Tonight we have something a little different. We have a great collection of people: Michelle Jewell, Curtis Taylor, Sinette B, brother Tony Anderson. This episode is going to be hosted by brother Charles Mitchell. We're going to be discussing uh, getting people's feedback, that is, from the film. We welcome all of you here. Thanks for joining us. With that, I'll pass it on to brother Charles. Peace, Charles.
Peace, peace. How you doing, family? We want to again welcome everyone to the broadcast. My name is Brother Charles Mitchell. I'm one of the Sons of Africa, and I've been working with the HAPI producers like Taki and Felicia, Rock, and so forth to make the public known about this wonderful film, HAPI. So tonight we have a panel that it's already been introduced. Briefly, I'm going to allow them a minute to talk about themselves a little bit more. But before I do that, I wanted to take care of some administrative work and letting everyone know that we're having another screening of the HAPI film this Saturday, August 1st, which just happens to be my birthday. So, I'm going to be there. It's Saturday, August the 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And there's going to be a private panel discussion again following the screening at 9:30 for people who bought tickets. So if you want to purchase a ticket, you go to hapifilm.com, and 3 hours before the event, a link and a message will be sent to you detailing how to access the film promptly. And there'll also be a Zoom link that will allow you to attend the after panel discussion. So with that being said, I just want to allow everybody that's here to introduce themselves, starting with our sister, Michelle. How are you? Is that Michelle? The sister with
I'm
the,
fine, thank you, and thank you.
Okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we hear you.
All right. Thank you for the invitation. Okay. My name is Michelle Jewell. I did see the film. I am grateful to be here. It is a pleasure to be here. Taki, it's fabulous to meet you, as well as Felicia and everybody else. Presently, I'm living in St. Pete. Originally, I'm from Harlem. I feel like I need to move back home right now because everything to be in the company of is back in New York. But
okay. Next, Curtis.
Peace. Yeah, this is Curtis. I'm a social worker here in DC. Been a social worker for 20 years in Baltimore, the DMV area. I've been a lover of Black history, since I was a teenager. And, I have connections with the HAPI production team. And it just is exciting to see this level of professional filming documentary done at this time. And it's refreshing and it's timely with everything going on right now, to have something that hits the way that this film documentary does and in the different areas. So it's really timely. I'm happy to even have witnessed it and just to be here with y'all.
We're glad to have you. Our other sister, it's hard to read your name, but you could introduce yourself.
Okay. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Sinette B. I'm many things. I'm a spoken word artist. I'm a painter. I'm also a new initiate into the Shrine of Ma'at, which is headed by Jabari and Anika Osaze. You see Jabari Osaze featured inside of the HAPI film, so definitely excited. We're having our coronation this Saturday. Woo! So awesome things happening August 1st.
All right.
Officially for your born day, your Heru day. And I'm also a new HAPI groupie, dude. Like, this should be on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
That make you happy. That need to be on a T-shirt, bro. I saw
that's
y'all
what.
on the
That's
live.
what's
I was
up.
like, wait, they got a live. I would ignore Instagram lives left to right because you can't do other things while you watching an Instagram live. So I usually ignore that. I said, no, I'm watching this one. I went and took pictures today in front of the poster. I'm not playing. All right. So
All
I'm
right.
originally from
All right.
Harlem,
I'm
and
sure. Go ahead, sis.
but
I'm sorry.
oh no, yeah. But last tidbit, I'm originally from Harlem, but I'm actually going to be moving this Saturday to Asheville, North Carolina, which is the first
Okay,
place to approve a plan of reparations for Black people.
that's it.
Hey.
Yep, no, most definitely. Asheville's
Right.
doing it.
All right. All right. And last but not least, our brother Tony.
Hey, family, what's up?
Hey,
Tony Anderson. Right now, I'm in Dallas, Texas. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and I guess I tell people I'm the last generation that was raised in an African village. So, but I guess I've been in Dallas for about 30 years and project manager for a large corporation. But as for me, I got started, I guess, in St. Louis. I guess I got turned. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Golden Classic comic books, but that was like the first thing that kind of started me on my journey into my Africanness. Brothers, actually the companies that still exist in there in New York City. So that was how I got started on my journey, and you know, it's a lifelong journey, right? So HAPI Film. When I saw that, it was like, it was kind of misleading in a sense because you guys were talking about economics and all that. I had no idea I was gonna get hit with all that, Kemet knowledge, man. That was I was like, and the beauty of it, man. The beauty of that film. Look,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just say that a lot of times, we as African people, we be not on target, right? We be half stepping, but not in this case, bro. Y'all was on it. Y'all was on it.
yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Yes, this is an amazing film in the scope of information that it covers, uh, from the Queen Mother piece that talks about and linkage directly from East Africa into West Africa and other parts, to the economic piece, to the cultural piece, to the dispersion of African culture. It's just an amazing piece. So you guys tell me, prior to seeing this film, I know you said Black Classic Press, and our brother Curtis mentioned that he's been
That's
studying
right.
for a while. But prior to seeing this piece, how familiar with the information were you that was in HAPI before you watched it? And that could go to everybody.
I mean, I'm always ready. I just don't want to.
That could go to
No, go ahead,
Michelle.
sis. Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
So
All right.
go ahead, sis.
How familiar with information prior hand? I want to say I probably heard about a little bit of everything that we saw in the film. It's one thing to hear about a little bit of everything. It's another thing to have the information laid out in such a sequential manner.
Yeah.
Everything from it being historically laid out, and then also having the social and cultural pieces added in the way that it's digestible. That's not something I've had done before. Because that's a lot of information. Like,
Yeah,
even as a Kemite, like trying to study the history sometimes is difficult, man, because you get different people giving you different pieces. And then, depending on what book you read, and you got to check the date of the book, because sometimes the information is updated some years later, but you still got to read the old book for the pictures because these is it's so many different layers of it. So you can make your head spin learning about that. So that was the part that I was really trying to get down pat. So watching this, if there was anything in my mind that was a little bit boggled, it got unraveled real quick because the history is just laid out so freaking clean, and then it brings it right into a modern day context, clean through.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Michelle, what about you?
I would say I would second that. I would second that. That's real. Yeah,
Sister Michelle, what about yourself?
yeah.
Is she on mute? Unmute her mic.
Mm-hmm.
Unmute her mic. I think her mic might be muted.
Her mic is muted.
Uh, all right. Well, your work on that, brother Curtis. What were you want to
Now, I was
continue with what you?
hit it right on the head. You know, I mean, the thing about it for me is I love documentaries. First of all, I'll tell y'all now, I love documentaries. You know, from Ida B. Wells to I mean, it's just stolen. I mean, I have so many documentaries here in my own like personal library, and you know, I feel like recently it's been a lack of good, serious, you know, documentaries of professional standard, meaning reference individuals that have the background to speak, you know, in their particular areas of actual specialty. This documentary literally had different walks of life culturally speaking about the topics that were driven by HAPI itself. It wasn't just the individuals that I love to see, like Dr. Nobles, you know, who I mean, you know, it's like you gotta love to see that, but you also had other cultures and people that have the knowledge speaking in regards to this topic of Kemet knowledge and cultural revelation of the significance of that past to now. And that was really refreshing to like see, because often you see like one particular person or a professional in that space kind of driving the points over and over again in a sense, and it's great and I love it. But this had numerous individuals with different aspects that were building into a beautiful, happy puzzle, and each part came into that puzzle. And that was the thing for this documentary to me that stood out, was all of the different, from Ashby to Malvo to Infodesha. I mean, you had numerous Jeffries. It was this continuous span, and it wasn't like they were on there for the whole time. It was a snap. And that's what stood out to me. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, you see that motion though? You see that little snap?
Yeah.
And you put it together. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I totally agree with you, brother. For those that haven't seen the film, I'm going to tell you, you have to see this film. What he's talking about is we have people that are specialists in Egyptology, specialists in economics, specialists in history, specialists in politics. Charles Barron, Claude Anderson is both an economist and he's worked in politics for most of his life. He's retired now, but he's still very active in the community. Solange Ashby is a new face that we haven't really seen that often, but she was on top game in this film. Also, we have our psychologist in the film, Dr. Patricia Newton. So it's just an amazing film. Sister Michelle, you want to continue? How familiar were you with this information before you saw the film? Sister Michelle?
Well, some of the information I was familiar with. I had actually taken a class with Professor Small a number of years ago, but I've always been in the company of something that related to Africa, the heritage, just the information in general. The documentary, because I can only call it that, because it's a recording of not only who we are, but what we come from. I can't relate to it as a film. I can't relate to it as a movie. But the documentary just, it almost like filled in a lot of the empty spaces for me. I'm a firm believer that if you want information, if you sit quiet long enough, it'll just show up. And a lot of what I was looking for, to some degree, without it showed up. Along with the fact that I'm also involved with a webinar with Professor Kamene, Kaba Hiawatha Kamene. His information is, and it speaks on the same thing. So there was a great deal more. Now, I was a little disheartened finding out that we as a people spent $3.5 trillion, and that just sounded ridiculous to me. But we're big spenders. And to hear that information and so much more about the area, and just to see what was there, I was completely blown away by the documentary. I usually get up and do something. I sat the whole time and did not budge. I mean, I'm a child watching cartoons for the first time. You know, I was really taken by it. It's superb work. There's, like Brother Charles said, you know, I've watched documentaries a good portion of my life, but I've also grown tired of seeing other people who cannot relate to who we are as a people speak to who we are as a people, along with the fact of my questioning how much are you going to leave out of who we really are. So I'm grateful to have seen this and to even be a part of having a conversation about it. And I was able to be a part of it.
Okay, thank you. Brother Tony, let me ask you, you've seen a lot of documentaries, I'm sure. I definitely know that I have, from Eyes on the Prize way back in the days to
Right.
all five episodes of what's this? Not Colors. What's the brother's name? That's always talking about Moist. But anyway, I've seen a lot of documentaries.
Hidden Colors.
Hidden Colors. Thank you. That's what I was forgetting. So all of Hidden Colors, and I thought for some people that was advanced information. For me, it was like a regurgitation of a lot of stuff that I've already known, because I'm kind of advanced in the study. But in terms of professionalism of that, it's one of the best. Out of Darkness and quite a few other videos I've seen on our history. So for you, what new thing did HAPI bring?
For me, like Sister Michelle alluded to, I'm also part of Kaba Kamini's webinar that he's doing. But it kind of synthesized things, because you know, Brad is doing his thing, and Kaba is doing stuff, and a lot of people are doing a lot of things. But see, that's the beauty of HAPI, is that it's a different path. You understand what I'm saying? Like Sister said, they brought a lot of things together. For me, part of it is like when I'm watching National Geographic or something like that, the beauty, the color, the Curtis even said something, the pacing and the timing of the movie. It's just like you watch it and you don't even realize how fast it's going by, because the timing and the pacing, and then and something, I don't know if people caught this, but even the music, you know what I'm saying? Like even the music in the background that you're not even conscious that is there, but it's happening, right? And so it all fits together. And the colors, the colors in the movie were like so vibrant, and it's like it was bright. So I'm just talking about just from a film quality, it's just like it's just a beautiful movie to watch. And then the other thing that really hit me was, obviously I'm like old school, but I liked how you guys integrated some of the younger brothers into it. Like, Taki, I know you're younger, but you brought in Asar and some of the other younger brothers, man. That was beautiful, because now I feel like there's a next generation that's going to carry this on, that they have that knowledge. I mean, these cats are like, they were smart, I mean, I'm not that smart on that level, but these cats were throwing down. And then the other part that actually, I give you guys total props for this, man. The way you brought that feminine aspect into this movie, that blew me away. I mean, just these beautiful sisters that was just kicking down. They was kicking the knowledge, you know what I'm saying? And then, I mean, and they start talking about these, we always talk, when we talk about Kemet, we always talk about, the brothers, but man, y'all was bringing all these sisters in. I mean, I heard their names, but some of them actually had never really heard of. So, I mean, there was just a lot of knowledge in that movie. So, it was just beautiful. So,
for us, our youngest sister, this is you're one of the youngest people here. So for you, what did you learn new from this, and including what seeing that now you're in the process with Brother Jabari, and you're learning a lot about the now, right now, or the happy river, as we should say. What was new for you? Take her off of mute, please. Go ahead, sis.
No, yeah. How's my sound?
You're good.
Good? Okay. I'm trying to figure out kind of where to start with this information, because it's like, even as an initiate, like doing my own independent study, it's still a lot to chew for anybody. Like, you have to read and reread a lot of information in order to absorb it all, because you're not just getting pieces of this information from within your own house. You also have this information circling, everywhere. And a lot of times it tends to get disseminated in this very kind of wild fashion. And then people end up getting lost in a lot of the social conversations and their personal opinions and this, that, and the third. So, sometimes it's hard to kind of absorb the whole of what you're getting. So when you're talking about what's new, a lot of it for me was new in the sense that this was probably the first time a lot of it stuck. Like, I have I'm one of those type of learners. I have to understand the meaning behind something in order to, I can't, memorization, even though I'm a poet, is probably the hardest thing for me to do ever. If I don't have, even when I'm memorizing my lines to my poem, I memorize what it's about and that helps me remember the actual words. So the same thing happened here. I have a true understanding about what's going on. Everything from, first of all, the movie explained Kemet not just from an esoteric standpoint. It really just spoke about Kemet as an actual country. Like, if you knew nothing before, or if you never thought of Kemet as a country before, it's a country. It has a government. These are government projects. I'm so serious on these most practical levels. We never really look at it that way, and it was just displayed in that way. So it now relates to something that we have to experience on a day-to-day. We live in countries that have their own governments, and this is what that means on our life on a day-to-day practice. Like, even when I forget the brother's name, he was the one where he kept talking about the organization was more fun than the pyramids itself. Sometimes he kind of went into that, like, this was how you pay tithes. Drinking bread and beer was a part of your different way to pay national tithes. He really made you kind of understand what that meant, and not just him. All of the speakers made you understand, like, okay, this is about economic dominance. When Taki was in the newly it wasn't a temple, but it was a newly excavated tomb, and he was sitting here talking about how you had another city, another ethnic group that had came in, from the south, and had pushed the people that was already there from the south and pushed them up, and now now those people have kind of amalgamated into the same people, and they're there for the sake of economic dominance, which kind of even goes into what racism truly is. A lot of people I hate when people sit there and say that, oh, don't discriminate me about the color of my skin. Racism has never been about the color of your skin, honey. It's always been about money. They want the money on the land you sitting on, period. I have to say that, because that's, the whole film is about economics. So to not talk about that in my response is null and void. So for me to understand that, and if before you understand now, and he brings it in a historical context, then now so that we can understand that this is not something in 2020 or even the year 1900. This is something that has been happening since antiquity. This is kind of just a pattern of the world. So to truly understand, so it's also revolutionary in this sense, because now I'm also understanding different intertwinings of that. And can I say congratulations? When I say y'all covered every every controversial conversation and smashed it and cleaned the plate with it. Y'all did it. Everything from they used, oh well, Africans enslaved Africans. Y'all brought us through a historical and cultural path for us to get to now, and I've never seen it presented that way. Like one of the things that I didn't know from before was the fact that you have a procession that happens every single year. Was it in Senegal or was it in Ghana? But a procession that happens is in Senegal. A procession that happens every single year.
It's Ghana.
It is in Ghana. Okay, it was Ghana. Thank you. So it happens in Ghana every single year where they walk the same path that our predecessors walked before they entered the slave ship and took their last bath in that particular river. And they kind of basically have been giving us energy back ever since. So we have this conversation about they forgot us, they didn't, want us, all this other stuff, and people are kind of attaching to the sentiments and not really understanding the historics of it, not understanding that, and me not even having the evidence to kind of present in conversation as well, that they've always missed their family because we are their family, whether we think of ourselves that way or not. They've always given us that love. So it's like to have a hardcore fact that I can use to demonstrate that is dope.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about Ansin Manso, Ansin Praso. Yeah, these are places where the Africans were brought from the interior, and like you said, they gave them their last bath there before they took them out to the coastline, to the forts and dungeons. But Brother Tony, you wanted to chip in something here?
Oh man, I just just backing up what she said is like the whole, what I never understood, like it was an economy, and so they had managers, you know what I'm saying, and to think about when he said, what was it, what was it, 2.3 million or something stones, or that they put for that one and it was like pyramid, and it was like, how in the world, I guess I never thought about somebody had to manage that, and coming from a management background, I realized, oh my God, how many levels did it take, and how much planning did it take to make that happen, and then the fact that you got these people volunteering, and which I really love that part of it, there was no Israeli slaves, you know what I'm saying?
It was a public works project.
Right, you know what I'm saying? But I'm saying we never thought about it like that, because first of all, we were told the Israeli slaves built it, and so I mean that was powerful.
Out of mud and straw bricks, that's right. Out of mud and straw bricks. So
and that was powerful. And then the fact that again, we're brothers and we know how to work with each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you guys are talking about going up and down the Red Sea, and first of all, it's just brothers being brothers. It's like they dealing all up and down the Red Sea, and they dealing over here. So okay, I'm gonna buy some stuff over here, and I'm gonna go down here and buy some stuff so I can keep my prices down. I mean, it's just logical. You know what I'm saying? It's just brothers being logical. But we never saw it from that perspective. So that actually blew my mind. It's like I don't know, because it was just the practicality of all of it, and it just made total sense.
Right. One of the things, and this is where with the curriculum and other materials that Taki and Felicia and the crew are going to be working on, is what you said, the administrative task. And keep in mind that it was not like a year-round project. It was only in the time when the fields were flooded and people couldn't farm. So this was like how we had in America, FDR in the Public Works Project during Depression. This is like, okay, we can't farm. The lands are flooded. We need to employ our people. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to build these monuments to our ancestors. And one of the things I like that you said, sister, is a lot of people, when they talk about Kemet or Egypt, they talk about the spirituality, the philosophical, the esotericness, the quote unquote metaphysics, right? They may talk about the wealth when they talk about King Tut, but it doesn't make it seem real. But this film is a film that makes it real. You see opposition, you see people fighting, you see refugees, you see migrants, you see interspersal of culture and cultural continuities from East Africa to Southern Africa to West Africa and out to the New World. And you see other people copying our stuff. I mean, when you talk about, for instance, the brother, you talk about moving millions of stones that weigh thousands of pounds. White folks still to this day do not have the science and technology to figure out how that was done in those times. So I think that we've actually lost a lot of the science and technology that we had at that time, to today. But I want to ask you guys the next question. So now that you've seen this amazing film, has any of the information from the film changed your life and your perspective on things?
For me, I mean, I'm not going to say it necessarily changed, but it put a battery in my back that I already had. One is taking the thing about this film to me as a social worker, and as a change agent, is like, what in the film is going to assist you with developing your like self? What in the film is going to assist you with transformative action? And the piece that I recognize within this film is, besides the culture is critical, because we know it's a building block for ourselves, right? And then, the economics is critical and the politics are critical, but how it weaved it all together, but then left you with a sense of action steps. And those action steps to me is really looking at some of our weaknesses as a whole community, which is the economic and politics. Now, we know that the cultural aspect is obviously a true weakness, and that's why the film addresses it head on and continues and will continue to add on. But when you talk about the economic steps that it brought up, what Dr. Boykins was adding on, and Charles Barron was talking about the housing and dimensions behind politics and economics, and Sister was saying it in regards to our spending dollar. But it's like the film says and is giving you a blueprint, and saying, spend on yourself, and Dr. Nobles had built on it, as we're putting emphasis and idealism and wealth on things, but not ourselves. And the film is basically telling you and showing you that we come from and are a mighty people. We have and had and currently have economics, and we need to regain our political strength. And I think with those three-pronged approaches there, that is obviously is something that is a structure that we can take and act from. It's not just a film that you're just looking at and all inspired, but it's action oriented. And I think for myself, I always think about what is going to be taken, and I use it. And I mean, for me, I can't lie to y'all. I take a lot of films and I turn them into like a little social emotional group. You know what I mean? I turn them into something for myself that I can utilize in a sense to help develop youth, to help develop others. So when I see this film, it's a perfect tool for someone like me that's working in the social fields, because it's saying to someone, hey, look, I'm already talking about cultural economics, but hey, I ain't touched on the politics. We talk about voting, but what does it really mean? And this film taps into all three, but also doesn't leave out the politics piece and how they weave in together. And even going back into some of the politics around that even. So for me, this film, it transcends it in the sense that it's giving you action steps. And I love to come away with action steps. I look at films and documentaries, because it's just, you hear the information, and like my brother Charles said, it's like some stuff is like redundant. You're like, oh, I love to hear it, but what else is next? And this film gives you what next. And that to me is a refreshing new piece that I got from this one here.
Well, I definitely agree with you, brother. A lot of times when you watch a film or documentary, it tends, like you said, it does leave you with action steps. It's more focused on playing on your emotions or getting you kind of in your feelings a certain way, whether pro or against whatever's being discussed. But this is one of the first films with marching orders, Boyce Watkins and Brother Small at the end, particularly, and Charles Barron, when they lay out how, when, like Charles Barron often talks about in his district in East New York, when people want to build projects, housing developments, there's a certain amount of housing that has to be made sure that it's available to his community. So it gives you marching orders. And he also talked about, if I remember, how desegregation actually hurt the Black community. And for me, that was I've heard it before, but that was a piece that really left me thinking, how much has the Black community not benefited from being integrated into the larger circle. When we had to depend on ourselves, we had more. A few years ago, we had that Black Panther film when they talked about Wakandas. Well, we had Wakandas back then with Kemet and the other great cultures of Africa. We had Wakandas here in the Americas. The Tulsa, Oklahomas, which Charles Barry talked about, the East St. Louis, Detroit, all of these different places where Black folks had our own insular community because the larger community wouldn't let us in. We built our own Wakandas, and they were real. They weren't a Marvel Comics creation. So, Sister Michelle, you've been a little quiet. Let me ask you, what has HAPI and any information that you get from HAPI changed your life, or have you been able to use it to teach the youth or your family in any way?
Well, the first person that I think is most important to learn is myself. And I think that I have a certain amount of information. I have it in a way where I can really explain it to somebody else. That's something that I would naturally do. But this documentary has forced me to stay on that path to continue to build who I am. Because I think what happens is the scholars that were in the documentary are the examples of whom I can follow. And I think that they become examples of who other people can follow as well. The changes that have been made have to remove those small things that were indoctrinated into my learning as a child up until maybe even yesterday. How much information settles on a person, it certainly settles on me. And I think that what happens for me is I don't see all of the changes that the information gives to me in the moment, see them over a period of time. That is certainly one of the things that I know that this has done for me. So when I think about the changes that have come about, this fabulous, America is the place everybody should come to as a means of being able to build their life and find success. But America is also the very country that has never opened up the doors for us to do the same thing. Our agenda is constantly pushed to the side. And I certainly agree with the fact that segregation was one of the most damaging things that has taken place with us, as well, and not to be offensive, Christianity. I mean, when I sit and take a look at all of the many fables that have been told, that's information that would naturally be passed on to the next generation. I can no longer give them the information that I once had before, because the information that I now have that have shown up just put me in a situation where I can't tell you a lie. I have to tell you what I found, and you can do your research just like I did mine, and you can see for yourself what's going on. So I've definitely had some things change in me, but I don't see all of the changes right now. I know that they will be gradual. And for me, it's like Professor Common, they said, you know, you can take the horse to the well, but you can't make the horse. The way that he breaks that down is if you maybe give the horse a cup of water and it takes it in, maybe it will recognize that it is thirsty. And that is certainly one of the things that this documentary has done for me. It didn't tell me that I was thirsty. I already knew that I was, but what it has done is quench my thirst. I've watched this like 3 times. I'm gonna watch it again. It's mine, so I can watch it as many times as I want to. But I'm certainly gonna watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
And can I co-sign on really the things that both Michelle and Curtis said? I think I want to work a little backwards. I'm trying to. There was a line that you made earlier about how our agenda is always put to the side, right? Even the idea of our agenda putting to the side is talking about the selection of us that is looking for our government or others to fulfill our agenda. So not only has that agenda been put to the side, when we were in a space where we were fulfilling our own agenda, it was systematically destroyed and sabotaged, and all of that, where we created economic excellence here in the United States. And that's also represented in the HAPI film as well, and how it happened, not just in Tulsa. Because we hear about Tulsa, but we don't understand how that moved all the way through, the 1900s, and how so many places were just like bombed and freaking destroyed. It's insane. And then I just want to co-sign Curtis when you were talking about how like the film also combined economics and politics. When I tell you that brought to light so much, because a lot of our community, a lot of the quote unquote woke folks, quote unquote conscious folks, they're like, I'm not into politics. But that's also because we tend to think that politics just to me, and we're not into politics. I think we tend to think that politics is just voting. Politics is not just voting. One of the most important pieces that I really felt in that film was in the later part of the film when they're talking about what's happening now in the States. One of the speakers, he is a politician, and he explained why he got into politics. He said because of power. And so he's a current local politician here in New York. I've seen his face, and it's like some of the things he was talking about, I remember from somewhere else. So Charles Barron, and he was sitting here saying that I now have control of a budget of like $10,000, $20,000 dollars. And I get to decide who I disseminate this money to, what companies I disseminate this money to, what businesses I disseminate this money to, what developers which also means because you are now the person that is in control of this money, you also have control over what some of the other developers, some of these other businesses, and how they lean in what it is that they create and what they produce, which now affects what us, the everyday person, has access to and doesn't have access to, and what is removed out of our community. So we essentially controlling, being in charge of policies, being in charge of that budget. It's a domino effect about removing the things in your community that you don't need there, and keeping the things that you do need to maintain, and adding the things that you didn't have before. You can't have economics without politics. You cannot, literally.
That's what's up.
All right. Wow. That's on point, sis. So let me ask. I had to move my venue a little bit. Getting a little signal problems. So let me ask. Were there any questions that you guys had after watching this movie? Taki, take notes because these questions might be good for the curriculum. So what questions did you guys have after seeing this film? Tony, let's take it to you first.
Oh man, I honestly I can't really say. I think I don't really have questions. I think what I wanted to see more of was a little bit more about the Sister Queens, because I honestly I had never honestly heard about it. I think it was Ahotep, and I had heard of Hatshepsut, but a lot of the other queens I had never had any knowledge about. So I would like to see a little bit more breakdown on that. As far as I'm just gonna piggyback on what everybody said. I mean, I think the way the movie was paced, it was so well paced. And then, then they hit you boom at the end with that hook, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, uh, that whole economic piece, bringing in the bank president from First Independence.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it was like, damn, but the thing, I guess, how do we pull that together? Like, how do we have these African American banks out there, but what do we do? What can we do to make them successful? Like, what kind of plan can we honestly put together? I mean, we know that a lot of us don't even know they're there, right? So how do we promote that? How do we get people to understand what the brother was saying? If you don't if you don't put money in a black-owned bank, then that means you're waiting for some European person to give you that 16% loan, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to a brother saying, hey, I see what you're doing. I see you trying to do something. I'm going to treat you right. So what do we do to move forward to help these brothers? Because, I'm all about that, but so I don't really have a question. That just, again, what are the next steps? How do we move forward so that we can start coming together, not only here, but not just in the diaspora, but across the world, because we're bigger than here, right? They said 1.3 trillion, but we're bigger than that. What about all that wealth in Africa? You know what I'm saying? What about all that wealth? We got to tie all that together.
I definitely agree. Well, one of the things that Felicia and her piece on the film definitely outlined it. Put your money in the black bank. Start a federal credit union, right? Because as you said, the banks, we typically take our money to the banks, right? And the banks take our money and invest in their communities, invest in other communities. But when we invest in a black bank in our community, that money is now available to people that want a business loan, to somebody that's trying to get a mortgage for a house in our neighborhood, whereas a Chase or Citibank or one of these other financial institutions is going to take $1.7 trillion, which I think is Claude Anderson said it makes us like the 6th or 7th wealthiest nation if we were a nation unto ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So we have it. We have the money. It's just what we do with the money that's the issue. So instead of buying Louis Vuitton, we could buy some stocks, right? Instead of buying some Louis Vuittons, right? We could take that money and invest it in a mill in Accra, right? On the African continent, is they're master weavers, master fabric makers, but people are going to buy on the continent I'm speaking now. They're getting fabric from Asia. They're getting fabric from the Dutch, the wax print and stuff. We can put our money to work where it benefits our brothers and sisters on the continent, and it benefits us in the profits that we reap working together. But we have to believe in ourselves, right? So for me, the HAPI film didn't leave me with a lot of questions. It left me wanting more information, an expansion of what was presented, right? And it put a battery in my back. I think Brother Curtis said that, right? To want to get this knowledge out. It made me excited in a way that I haven't been excited in a while. Walking amongst the people and stuff. Sometimes you get a little discouraged because there's so much information that you're seeing, but it's not seeming to reach the interest of other people. But this presents the information in a way that makes the information exciting, not to just new folks, but to folks that have been engaged in learning this information for a while. And so, in the midst of coronavirus, in the midst of quarantines, in the midst of nationwide struggle in America, this is something that gives us a focus on putting ourselves back together. And I just love the way that it takes something that I've been learning for years from Dr. Jeffries, how economics, the management of your ecology, how politics, the social and people management and culture, the management of your ideas and philosophy, and weaves it all together to show us the blueprints or how we could take what we know, whether it's a lot or a little bit, and make it practical, be in the highest level of acquisition of knowledge. Once you've learned it and sifted through it and deciphered it and reanalyzed it or whatever, it makes it practical. And it gives, like the brother said, marching orders that we could go out and do practical things in our community with. So, let me see what this next question is.
So hold on.
So,
Brother Charles.
the last,
Okay, because you said, let me tell you, I'm realizing how much I learned from this movie. I learned so many important details in this movie. When you were answering his question about, and you started talking about, that gives people, Black people access to loans for their house or their business. The movie went into more specific about why is that so? Because we hear general statements like that on the daily, how it mentioned that as a Black homeowner, you're more often, they gave like the percentage of how often you're probably denied for a loan for your house, and that if you do get one, you're usually charged about 30% a higher interest rate than other ethnic groups of people for the loan on that same house, which also makes it harder to pay back. It's insane. So when you're talking about banking Black, you are basically, you're getting equitable treatment so that you can actually own your home, because, and the thing, the movie also expressed that to own a home is like owning land, and without land, you don't really have any source of income, because it's like the oldest source of economics on the globe. And Mr. Anderson, you not banking Black? I recently just updated my Black banking health. So I'm literally, so you asked that question. I'm like, dude, just do it. Like I made a post yesterday saying, I just updated my Black banking health. We got to allocate the Black dollar, so there's something left after this. So we have something to enter after these marches. So when you just do it and you just post it, it's like, okay, you did it. I ran into somebody earlier and I was like, so I'm a part of Industrial Bank. They have a new account called the Kasasa account, checkings and savings. It's $25 just to start it. There's no monthly minimum if you need that. And not only that, usually you don't get a high interest rate on your checking or savings account until after you're making about $1,500. If you make under $1,500, you actually get a higher APY rate, and the highest that you can get is 1.75. Whereas most banks and checking and savings accounts, you're lucky if you can get 0.015. 0.5 is like high in that sense. So bank Black.
All right, sister. It takes our sisters to keep us on point, Taki. That's right. So Karma Bank, First Independence.
That's the action step right there.
Industrial Bank.
That's it, right here from DC, Industrial Bank from DC, representing historical, and it's unfortunate because I've seen their footprint down here become smaller and smaller, even with their U Street location was under jeopardy because of gentrification. So it's ironic, sister, that you build on that because it's right here. And it made me think about it, because I wasn't banking. You mean Black? Because all my stuff is in a credit union, Bank of Babylon, and that's what it is. You know what I mean? So that's real talk. And so with this, right though, sister, it made me think like, something. When them CDs come up to, you mean maturity, it's taken right from over there CQ, moving right to industrial. Same scenario, better rate. Why not? Right. It's that simple.
So I just want to add on something. I'm sorry, I just want to add on to something real quick about give you a little history on the production side about Industrial Bank. So there was another bank we had in the film prior to First Independence, and that was City National Bank. And we interviewed the CEO, Preston Pinkett, and we had some problem with the audio, and we had to go back and do a retake. But in the process of requesting a second interview, Industrial Bank was acquired, Industrial Bank acquired City National Bank. So City National Bank then became Industrial Bank. But the original bank was in there was City National. Industrial Bank became their now parent company. Now we needed another black bank interview, so First Independence came in. So all those things kind of came in together, and it really worked out in a way that was, in a sense, a lot of this, I always say I can't take credit for it, or we really can't take credit for it because it happened the way it was supposed to happen. There was other forces at play here that kind of put this together in a very synchronized way. And that banking piece really, it happened in a way that I was kind of shocked at it, because all the City National stuff was in there. In the process, Industrial Bank took them over. We were trying to get an interview with Industrial Bank just to get the interview piece. Only thing they granted us was pieces to use their likeness and their images. It was taking a long time to actually get the interview. But First Independence and Kenneth Kelly, who came on strong, and is also one of the producers in the film later on, really, really added something, another level to the film that we didn't really expect. So we kind of had that experience moving throughout the film, and those things would just happen, and they would happen very organically. I definitely want to give a shout out to my brother Seed Haru, to HAPI Films, from scoring it, the cinematography, the graphics, the animation, all those things just came together seamlessly. I just really wanted to touch on that banking piece because it was very essential in how it developed, and it wasn't something that was planned. And we're talking about, again, Black economics, and you're having a merger of two Black banks. And I really want to underscore that point that, when you're talking about the merger of Black companies, it's something that should be celebrated as well. We got the merger of City National and Industrial Bank to create a larger Black bank. And like Curtis said, the blueprint for Industrial Bank, he saw it kind of, decrease, but now you see an increase in it that is spread across multiple states. So definitely want to get a shout out to Industrial Bank and a shout out to the Black dollar that support them.
So I want to step back a minute into what Sister Sinette said, because that's very
Can I share a story?
important. One second, but to talk about the banking, we have to really, like the sister said, a lot of times when it comes to banking and finance, we're set up to fail. I mean, Ta-Nehisi Coates did a piece a few years ago now where he outlined the whole history of redlining, right? And redlining wasn't necessarily about your income. It wasn't necessarily about your credit rating or your credit status. It was white folks penalizing you for being Black or trying to keep you back because you're Black, not even penalizing, because they fear Black folks getting strong again. So so-called racism, white supremacy is about them maintaining their supremacy, and they can't maintain supremacy because I was watching today Out of Darkness, and Brother Small talked about the false notion of white supremacy. He said when you're supreme, you don't have to do anything but just be, and your supremacy will naturally just rise to where it's supposed to be. But white folks are making it so that they know who's real supreme being, who's the first being, who's the dominant being on this earth, and it's folks that look like us, right? And we don't have to do anything but just be our marvelous, magnificent selves. But white folks, in order to keep us from rising to the top of the cream, you know how milk separates and the cream rises to the top. White folks naturally know that we're going to rise to the top if we're just given the occasion, because we excel in every aspect that they let us excel in, the arts and sports. We naturally excel. We don't even have to. We don't have to take steroids, right? We don't have to.
They don't let us excel.
We're just naturally, because of the melanin in our skin, it interacts with the universe in a way that lets our magnificence rise. So when you're talking about finance, they know that if we're allowed to succeed, we'll not only succeed, we'll do better than them. You know what I'm saying? We did it in Tulsa. We did it in Gainesville, Florida. We did it in Rosewood, Florida. We did it in so many places across this nation, and they had to destroy everything that we built in order for them to maintain where they are and keep us where we are. So what she said is very important about understanding that finance and how it relates to keeping us impoverished and in the condition that we're in. But go ahead, Sister Michelle. I'm sorry.
So Hold on, and I'm sorry, one snippet, but right before I actually
Many,
was originally. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to give one snippet. I actually originally had a City National Bank
Oh, wow.
account, so right. Because they opened on 125th Street in Harlem. So I just had like, money in it as in a savings account, but it wasn't like, particularly active just because I wanted to be able to say I had a black owned bank. Right. And then when they got acquired, like I know they're still kind of finishing the acquisition up. And then I guess they were still in mid acquisition and then quarantine hit and, the pandemic hit. So it's just making it take longer. So when I said I've cleaned up my financial, my black banking health, when I saw that new Kasasa account, I was like, okay, this is something that I can maintain and use actively on a regular basis. So I opened those up, and I opened it up totally online. I didn't even really have to go into the bank for nothing. It was easy. Customer service is awesome too. And moved over the money from the old CNB savings account. So everything is official industrial bank products, and then just close the old savings. So we able to move forward. So yeah.
All right. Great. Sister Michelle, I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. That's what we're here for. So I'm fine. Apollo Theater on so it's right next door to the Apollo Theater. There was a bank called Freedom National Bank. And it actually, I believe that the bank was there. They were sort of in competition with Carver. But Freedom National had been there for a while. And I remember listening to some of the conversations of some of the parents who, my mother kept company with, but I would hear them talk. And I remember Freedom National was about to close and they needed financial support. Bill Cosby showed up. They were going to close on a Wednesday morning. Bill Cosby came with a cashier's check. The employees are standing outside. Everybody who needs to be there is present, and they refused his money. Now, this is at a time where he was sort of still, coming up in his own career. But I'm saying that to say that Carver's still there. I believe it is. But we had an energy that was unstoppable when we had an energy that I believe was unstoppable when we understood that we didn't need anybody else but ourselves to do anything. I think that Garvey sort of started it. I think it's continued. And I think that if we get to a place where we believe and understand that we don't need the outsider again, we're stuck in this place where they believe, well, this person is okay, that person is okay. I'm not saying that white folk ain't okay. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't need them. I don't necessarily need them for anything. And I think that as a people, if we could get to the place where we don't have to mesh with them, like you said, Brother Charles, and Curtis said it earlier, if we learn to spend on ourselves, but what exactly does that mean? Do we go out and treat ourselves to a Louis Vuitton that we don't necessarily need? Because we do that for the sake of letting somebody know that we're moving up. We are not all the Jeffersons. I mean, by far we're not, right? But I think that if we begin to understand that we don't need other people as a means of being self-supporting, it would change the way that we function, because we don't. If we spent $3.5 trillion, and I'm not get he shut down some those stores by not patronizing them. Different parts of Africa are fighting through that right now. How many Vietnamese and Koreans have stores on 125th Street that have been there for years? I think that if we really get to a place where we
They're cutting her in the middle of the night.
training,
She's about to say it all.
the mental training changes with not only
Too powerful, too black, too strong.
Dude, that happened while I was watching the film the first time.
See, Florida's always cutting us off. Florida's always cutting us off.
through
We're going to repeat when
your
signal.
So I think that if we kind of get to the place where we understand that we are one.
Hey, Sister Michelle, the information you have is so powerful right now. And we definitely appreciate that piece of history. Is there anywhere in the house maybe you have a better signal and you can repeat that again? You want to go out and come back, and because we were talking about with the Bill Cosby history and everything else you were saying with the parents.
Yeah, that was
real. So powerful. We really want to make sure people hear that and get it, and really get what you're saying. So is there somewhere else that you can go, maybe with a better signal? Hey, Charles, you want to just go to the next one moving forward?
When I saw you, brother, peace, family. While she tries to find a place with a little better, I just wanted Veggie back on statement of Freedom National Bank. Freedom National Bank was a bank that Robinson helped to establish. I say that to say that today's modern time, we have this separation, kind of like the separation of church and state. We have a separation between artists and entertainers nowadays that didn't use entertainers. Robinson was critical in the Freedom National Bank, and she's talking about the time when they were having some fiduciary challenges. Not just Bill Cosby came out, but there was a line down 125th Street of regular black folk coming, bringing their money to help Freedom National Bank stay alive, because we understood, even in the midst of all the misfortunes, that we understood how critical and important Freedom National Bank, as well as Carver Bank and the other banks community at that time were to us as a people. Sister Michelle, you want a little better location?
I'm hoping that it is. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you. So go ahead. Can you repeat a little what you were saying? Remember your parents' discussion and Bill Cosby money.
So it started cutting off when you started talking about us wanting to basically not just want ourselves, but to be self-sufficient. When you started having that conversation, that's when it started breaking up.
That's right. They wouldn't take Cosby's money. I don't know why didn't they take Cosby's money.
I think they.
Well, I mean,
so I think they didn't take his money.
I think the answer is easy. No, they didn't take his money at that time. One of the things that I think we need to understand as people is we need to pay attention to who builds us. I think once we understand who's really building us, it's going to make a lot of difference in terms of how we function. And I'm not trying to get political or anything. I just want to speak what I see as the truth. When you look at O.J. Simpson, he was not supported by the black dollar. He was supported by money that came from people like Anita Bryant. This constant fighting about orange juice and being in Florida. Now, all of a sudden, He's got nothing. And so the people who really supported and backed Bill Cosby are white folk. When they allowed him to believe that he could make as much money as they did, he made the cash. When he had the funds to go and rescue Freedom National Bank, they
Up there you
told
go
him
again,
no.
messing with.
When he tried to purchase
Oh, yeah.
Channel 4, they told him no. You
He tried to purchase
see the
channel.
craziness going on with Nick Cannon.
Daggone.
Powerful stuff. He not only tried.
He had all of the, all of the hood
That's crazy.
Man, this is killing me right now. This is
to say everything that he wanted to say.
She's saying channel. Just to clarify, she's saying Channel 4 for those that are not in New York. Channel 4 is WNBC.
I'm just simply saying that what supports us. If we continue to believe that we need a dollar outside of a melanated dollar, we will not be able to survive in the same fashion. We need to support. We need to support ourselves.
Amen. I say. So just to clarify, as I was saying, because some people that are viewing are not from the New York City area. So Channel 4 is known as the NBC or WNBC. But Bill Cosby not only tried to buy Channel 4 or WNBC, he also tried to buy WCBS or CBS Channel 2 here in New York. And to go back into the Harlem thing, now we have
Oh no.
at about.
You sound low.
Okay. All right. Let me repeat.
Bill Cosby tried to purchase.
This is crazy. This is crazy.
Man,
the folks are messing with us now, huh? But
yeah, you got. I know that
Self-sufficiency
Bill
is the most
Cosby
dangerous conversation.
went to purchase Channel 4, and they told him no.
Right.
You look at Spike Lee. Spike Lee has Spike TV. Oprah Winfrey has OWN. Those stations are not Channel 5, 11, 9, 4, 2. They are cable stations. That means that they are still functions of somebody else. You have to understand.
What? Sister Michelle, you freezing up again. I think the information is too powerful, yo. They can't take it.
Yo,
They can't take it.
Michelle, I'm gonna need you to record this and send it to us just so we can watch it later. Because
The difference between cable, right?
Right.
Cable, right?
I can't.
The difference between
It ain't working now.
Yes.
Man.
Yes. If we could spend 3.5 trillion. Oh.
Right. So what she's saying is very critical.
Can you hear me?
Off and on. It's breaking up.
Oh gosh.
Between the primary channels
you.
and subscription or cable TV or access to it. Our boy Byron Allen just had a big fight and trying to get access.
My last comment.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
We hear you. And we don't hear you.
Can you hear me?
It's going in and out, sister. So while she's trying again, what she's trying to explain is some of the politics that goes on with money and economics, right? So Bill Cosby tried to purchase Channel 4, NBC, and he tried to purchase WCBS at one time, and he was rejected for both deals. BET and other cable stations have also often had to fight with the primary cable providers to get their channels included in the packages that they offer, right? We know for our community, entertainment and sports is something that we spend a lot of money on, right? So preventing major cable providers, TV One, I used to work for Interactive One, which is with Black Planet and others, Black Planet and Mi Gente and the other, that is the internet aspect of it. But TV One, Radio One, Interactive One, BET, Byron Allen's Entertainment Studios productions. They've all had a hard time getting getting purchasers of their material to go on other people's channels, but also to get their channels included by the major cable providers across the country, because they know that it is a way to get the information to our people that's enlightening, right? It's a way for us to define our voice for ourselves. And so they do, and it's a way for us to make some money, to make it blunt. So they do everything that's within their power to prevent us from doing that. What I was saying earlier, to bring it back to Harlem, is today we have opportunity zones that a Black Republican put out the program in the government. So now they have opportunity zones. But about 15, 20 years ago, we had empowerment zones. Harlem had a big Upper Manhattan empowerment zone. But who benefited from all of that federal money? It wasn't us. And I know personally, because I've worked with there's a designer here in New York, a Nigerian designer called Moshood, and he had opened a store on Frederick Douglass, and I think it was 136th Street, and he was trying to apply for the federal funding that was available through the empowerment zone. But what they did with them, or what they were doing with Freedom National Bank, is although people were putting up the money for Freedom National Bank, there was some other fiduciary legal stuff that was blocking them. So by the time he came with the money, they had put some other legalese in the way of Freedom National Bank being able to continue, even though people were willing to give them the money. So the same thing with Moshood. Moshood will put in his paperwork. They say, "Oh, you're missing this. Oh, you're missing that. Oh, you're missing this." So they paperworked them to death. My grandmother's first cousin used to own a Linux Lounge, and they did the same thing to him, denying him access to the empowerment zone money. And so, and then other things happened as well. They boosted his lease, went from $10,000 a year to $20,000 at the next lease renewal. So they tried to box him out. What their plan was to get him out of the space that he had rebuilt with his blood, sweat, and tears, and take the infrastructure in the very building itself. It had this famous room in the back. It had this wallpaper. I forgot what it was called, the Leopard Lounge or the Leopard Room or whatever. But they wanted to get him out of the space and bring some restaurateurs from Lower Manhattan, white folks, up into Harlem as part of this gentrification plan, where he took all the infrastructure. He gutted everything that he put into the building. They took him out. He took it out when he lost the building, and he had a fight for several years where they were trying to get it back. But it took them so long where it wasn't feasible for them. So they just gutted the building and put a whole new building structure there. The building is not even there anymore. But this is what they do to Black businesses. I know from the Black community of entrepreneurs here in New York, for instance, we had on 125th Street, we had Mark 125, right? And March 125, all of those black businesses that were making money, the restaurants, the people making clothes, the people making jewelry, the people making natural products, Giuliani kicked those folks out of that space, right? And instead of renegotiating a plan with the African Americans who make up the majority of Harlem, and who were, the businesses there, they went to other Africans that didn't have skin in the game, the African Muslims, and they moved it down to 116th Street, and it became in the control of our brothers that are African Muslims that had no understanding of what was going on politically around, but are more malleable. They can manipulate them. So these are the games that Europeans play with us in the financial world. And like you said, Sister Michelle, until we stop relying on Europeans to give us capital out of our own money, mind you, until we stop relying on them. Brother Smalls talks about some basic things. Like, we have a lot of black entrepreneurs, right? But they're making jewelry, they're making clothes and some other products, right? But we have some basic needs that we still are not providing for ourselves. We don't grow our food to any large degree. Our clothing, our everyday clothing that most of us wear is not made by us. Right. Dr. Clark used to tell us that we need one black business making our underwear. There was one at one point in the 80s and 90s, the brother that used to make the whole little set with the top, the t-shirt, the underwear, and a hat. I don't know why he added the hat, but we don't even make our own underwear. So we need to make the basic things, food, clothing, and shelter that we need for our community, and not rely on anybody else to feed our community. We wouldn't have food deserts if we grew our own food. We'd have access to fresh vegetables and fruits, right? Our hypertension, our blood pressure wouldn't be as high, right? Those are some of the basic actionable things that we can work on, and it's being done. One of the things, this is a magnificent time for this movie to come out, right? And it didn't really deal. Boyce Watkins talked about cryptocurrency and the internet a little bit, but this is a magnificent time for us financially to be able to do things because of the technology that's available to us now. I used to do film production and video production, and when I was in school at Brooklyn College, I had to stop. I took my first production class, and then for production 2, we were expected to make a 15-20 minute film. And I went to the professor, and I told him my economic situation, and I asked him how much does he think it'll cost for me as a student to create a film? And he was like, oh, $1,000 to $2,000. That was over 20 years ago. Now we could make a film for a few $100s, right? And we could do it all in-house in our own home. We have the technology, we have the computer capabilities to do it, right? If we want to make music in the 1950s and 1960s, when we made music, you had to go to an Arista, you had to go to a Columbia, you had to go to a CBS, because only they had the money for the studios, only they had the money for the recording technology, only they had the money to print the albums and distribute them. But now you can make an album on your phone. This young white girl and her brother that won, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 Grammys last year, the year before, they did it all in their house, and she came out with best album of the year, I think best single of the year, and all from inside her bedroom and her brother's bedroom. Now we have capabilities that we've never had before to be self-sufficient and independent. We just and with HAPI coming out, this is just an opportunity for us to take hold of all of these technologies and make them work for us in a way that wasn't available before. We have crowdsourcing, we have crowdfunding, we have online banking. You don't even have to go to a physical bank. One of the things that kept us from black banks is because they were, like, I'm here in New York, Independence Bank is down south, or the banks in the Midwest, but now we could bank online. So there's not many limitations to what we could do with this technology. It's just up for us to seize it and take advantage of it like other people are.
So
Go
brother,
ahead, Sister Sinette.
so I'm gonna work backwards. One, forget that white girl and whoever she was working with that won the award, because we've been doing that. The second we had the opportunity that we could have professional creation skills to work from home, we started using them. Period. That's one. Yeah, it's so many thoughts. It was that one, and we were talking about TV. So being that you brought up technology, we've been in a space for at least about a good 5 years now, where a lot of people consume a lot of their video online, where cable has not been a necessity. It's 2020, so yeah. So I want to say since about at least 2015, cable has not been a necessity, where you can watch everything that you need to watch online. So with that being said, you have online black-owned television subscription services so that we can bypass all of those other issues. One of them being Quelly TV, KWELI.TV, or you can just Google Quelly TV and find all of it that's owned by a black woman. There's another one that I'm also aware of called 24/7 Films. It's 247films.tv, which is actually associated with the Hip Hop Film Festival NYC, which is owned by a black woman from Harlem. And 24/7 Films, she takes the best of what is on, comes from through that films festival and those submissions, and she puts it on that channel. And it's only $5 a month for you to subscribe, and you can watch whatever as much as you want. And during quarantine, she's just been screening free films. So not only is it dope to watch, and continuing with it, the purpose of her creating that channel is for the sake of them to the filmmakers to be able to be picked up by major network and get their own deals. And she's also creating the education piece. So we can do these multiple tiers of this work where you're teaching, she's also teaching the filmmakers and all the levels in between how to own your content, how to, negotiate a deal and still own your content by the best. So and also helping them understand what isn't a good deal and provide good services, straight and through. So when you were talking about earlier about how, when they're bringing certain things into this community that sound like it's a good deal, but it ends up just being another form of gentrification, like you were talking about the empowerment zone and how a lot of our business had trouble accessing these empowerment funds. When you build your business where you're starting to educate that, you can circumvent that. So I'm bringing it back now. Miss Jewell, because they kept cutting your knowledge, because you started talking about self-sufficiency. So as the youngest person on this panel, I'm going to say this in the most layman terms that I can possibly do it, because when you're talking about what we've been protesting for, a lot of people don't really want self-sufficiency. They don't really want freedom. What they're doing is, in the short version, they really just want white people to like them. That's it. And we're so concerned with folks trying to like us that we're not doing what we need to do to take care of ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And just like on a common person-to-person level, nobody's going to pay your rent. Nobody's going to buy your food. And you need to stop expecting people to do that. We need to have those same expectations of ourselves, not just as individuals, but as a collective racial family. Forget about people trying to like you. Ain't nobody gonna like you for you to get your money, get your land, get your house, and take care of yours. Period. Let's keep moving. And that's self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency is when you also have self-esteem that you don't need somebody else to like you do.
So one of the things when we think of the production of HAPI, the thing that kind of came first was the HAPI movement. And a lot of what was being discussed now, or I guess over the last maybe 20 minutes or so, is how do we forward the HAPI movement. I think it's really essential that we have these discussions. I think really in order, one of the things that has to take place is we have to put some really serious think tanks together and lay out a blueprint and start with a small group of people. And as the momentum grows, we can add other people can come in and be a part of it. We got to start somewhere, and we have to understand like what steps we're going to take as a people, as an organization, and how can we move this forward. The production of the film was set forth to elicit and solicit these types of discussions so that we can understand that there's more work to do. We didn't want to just make a film just to make a film. We wanted to do something that was really, like I like to call it, had legs on it, and that can go further and give us viable action plans and steps that can be implemented. But the challenge is we have to implement them. And, you know, sadly to say, and all too often, there's a lot of talk that goes around, and there's not enough action. I always say that Black people oftentimes, we talk too much and we telegraph everything. We constantly say what we're going to do instead of just doing the damn work. And we got to do the damn work. Work got to be done. We know what we need to do. This stuff that was introduced and stuff that was said in the film and stuff that we didn't. Was no surprises. There's stuff we already knew already. You know, it's common knowledge. But now it's time to execute that. So you know, I'm really happy that we're definitely having this discussion, and we can really, like I said, the next step is sitting down on a collective, or like we're doing here. I would not really wouldn't want to do it on the internet, but sit down in a collective and really lay out maybe a 10-step plan. This stuff has been done already. Everything that we're talking about, even this 10-step plan, these plans, this stuff has been laid out. Blueprint to Black Power, Amos Wilson. This stuff has been done already. Right. So the question is, where are we going wrong? Like, we've had great elders, ancestors, people who've laid out plans for us. We've seen the history of the now, Black Wall Street, everything that we need to do. We know we need to do it. It's just a question of just doing it. And I like what Sister Michelle said in regards to Black people not needing or seeking the approval, and that's really important. And we've had we can just build from our strength, and our strength is our community. But somewhere along the line, someone convinced us, whether through the Negro Leagues, Black music. We all know Philadelphia International. Those who are a little older, Motown. We sold all the industry we created. You know, someone convinced us that we could make more money if we turn R&B to pop. They say, well, pop music becomes more viable and crosses over, and instead of selling 100,000 copies, at 100 million copies. So, you know, we can use that and make correlations to, you know, I hate to give, I'm not a biblical person, but correlations to people selling their soul in the Bible, selling your birthrights. This is something that Black people have done, you know, quite a bit. Black cinema, Black television, Black sports. You know, we feel that it's better. The white ice is colder. These are things we need to get out of. These are notions we need to get out of if we're going to move forward.
Right. You know,
Can I make a
one thing
point?
I want to add too is that, you know, and looking at this movie and looking at the piece about culture in the movie itself, and the one piece, I think it was Professor Small was building on about how, you know, culture has its actual principles.
Hey, Curtis, could you hold that thought for 1 second? Michelle, I know you wanted to say something, but you're like in and out a lot. Can you use your telephone or something and come back in?
Yeah,
you want to try that?
Yeah. And really, I think for Michelle, there's just a delay, so you may have to just talk slower so that it catches up.
All right, Curtis, while she's getting set up, go ahead, brother.
No, I was just building on what Professor Smalls was building on, is that looking at culture itself and looking at the aspects of culture and how the culture is not just, you know, what we exude or where we come from, but it's a guideline. And as you look at culture and you look at aspects and teachings of Ma'at and how it was a part of everyday living, you know, it was a part of everyday living and not just like a spiritual book, but it's just how we live. And I think that as we talk about HAPI and we talk about the three-pronged approach of economics, politics, culture, but also it's looking at the practical applications of that within our own lives. How do we practically utilize economics or culture or politics? How is it tangible for us? And I think that for us here, people that are conscious and culturally conscious and taking steps to look for films like HAPI or go to a Chancellor Williams or a Diop or whatever cases, this Akbar. It's endless materials. But what about those that aren't seeking it? And how is it that HAPI as a concept can tap into or get into those minds of, you know what I mean, of those that may not be like my sister here that just been, you know, actively taking lessons from some brother's name, Hiawatha, or Jabari, or you know, folks that are in this or like, you know, I was going to Wisdom Wednesdays with like Browder. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right.
you know, me out here, you know, we're doing it. Like we're seeking the knowledge. But
So,
it's like, how's it going to happen? That's what I want to know is the next steps for HAPI in getting it to others. You know what I
right.
mean?
So the first way is by people like yourself and everyone that's in the audience is sharing this information in regards to letting people know that making people aware of the fact that it's out there. Secondly, I want to go back to something you said before about Professor Smalls talking about culture. That was done on the fly. We came back from Ghana and I said, I need you to do a narration over this piece right here. He said, let me see it. We played it for him. I said, all right, I got it. And he just went through it. And I tell you, it, like everything else, it fit seamlessly. That wasn't something that was scripted. The brother, he looked at it and he saw the piece and edited the piece. The piece was edited, but he put the voiceover over it once he took a look at it. And he was just like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And it just fit in seamlessly. But it's really important to understand, going back to the third point, was the approach. And one of the things for me is, as a director, was to really do something that could reach a larger audience of Black people. And we wanted to communicate to people on their level. I try to keep it so, and I know a lot of it sometimes is kind of heavy, but I just wanted to make sure people can relate to it. And it was produced with that in mind. Seed and I would make sure that it came together in that way so that the average person can ingest it and digest it. They could really take this information and go with it. Even down to the fact that the film has diversity. We just wanted to make sure that it communicated to everyone. And more importantly, and I think this is something that Black people seem to, forget, that we are the civilizers. We are the teachers of the world. The problem with the world is that the students are now teaching the teachers. And we once again got to take the rightful place on the planet, and we have to teach the world. So what we use in HAPI, we use their biggest mouthpiece to speak our narrative. So we have to be in a position where we are controlling information, we are controlling the dialogue, and that's what this film has done. And that's something that, we got to give credence to the ancients and those who we spoke of in the film, and the ancestors in there, because they are a part of the cast, a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Sister Michelle, you're in a good spot now?
I think so, because I'm on my phone. And can you hear me?
Loud and clear, you are good to go.
Okay. I want to say this, and just let me just say this. Taki, I'm not really sure. I really want to know if you really understand what you did. Like, I really want to know if you understand what you did. You became one of the examples for somebody under you to follow. We always want someone to be a leader. We are that within ourselves. But if you don't recognize it, then it's not something that could come to the forefront. And I say what I say to you because it was real clear when you all got to that one particular tomb that nobody else had access to. You were given access. Why were you given access when everybody else couldn't even get it? You got access because your people understood what they had already given you. Is that making sense? Like I trust that it is, right?
No.
Your ancestors knew. They gave you, my belief is they gave you information. You heard the whisper, you went and took off with it, and then every door that you needed to have opened up for you. Every door. When we are working with the connections that have been given to us, that are ours innately, there is nothing that we can't do. Nothing. I've seen that in my own life. And even because I was afraid of, having some weird belief that I wouldn't be able to move on, I stopped my own flow. My mother used to tell me, Michelle, you are your own worst enemy. Every single one of us is just that way. Taki, you are an example of what somebody younger can do. The conversations with the ancestors, the pouring libation, making that connection. We have everything we need, and we still, and because we've been enmeshed in something that doesn't belong to us, we're believing the lie, because as Professor Khamenei says, when you believe the lie so long, the truth is hard to believe.
So I'm gonna just share something with you guys and with the audience at large. The originally we first started trying to doing some of the stuff for HAPI like maybe 10 years ago, and I was in Kemet alone, and I've been traveling back and forth to the Nile a little over 25 years now, and in going back and forth, I never had a problem with access. I've always, but wanted to go someplace, wanted to do something, it was basically, all right, whatever you want to do. So I went there in 2011 by myself with a camera, tripod, some sound equipment, and I tried to do this. It wouldn't work. And the access that I would normally have, I didn't have it. And we was trying to go to Derabalis, do some things, and just was like, nah, this is not working. And what comes to me now is it wasn't supposed to work then, because it had to be done the right way. It had to be done in a way in which, in the time of it as well. So what you're saying, sister, I agree with you 100%. And we had to go with a team, and it had to be shot correctly. And again, I want to speak about Sid Haru to HAPI Films. We went there, my brother and his wife, and we went back again. But it had to be done correctly. And I remember in the car, we was like going to their house. They was like turned around, and the police got involved. And I was like, that was real strange for me, because it just never happened. But I remember being frustrated in 2011. I mean, kind of being pissed off because it wasn't going the way I wanted it to go. And some of the stuff that you saw, I shot it myself originally, but it wasn't something that it didn't really give it the, it just didn't come out.
There.
It wasn't come out
where it needed to be.
Right. So, it was something that was tabled up until maybe about 2015 until we started doing it again. And this time we were ready. And this time it was no problem. Whatever we wanted to do, and it had to be done right, and it was done the right way. And it was like, okay, the ancestors was like, yeah, we're going to do this the right way. We ain't going to do it, because we're going to tell the story, tell it right. So yeah, no, you're absolutely 100%. And we, with Dr. J and I, we went down into Nubia years prior, back in 2004, and just getting into Sudan was a challenge within itself. But those doors opened, and that's been the history of it, is getting to places and having access for a long time. Like that one tomb with Southern Knocked, that's a tomb and a story that I've had with me for about 20 years. Going to El Kab and knowing the tomb was there, just telling the stories and lectures and things like that. And, it was a blessing to finally get a chance to experience it personally, because that was my first time in that particular tomb. Same thing with Harkuf. Harkuf was opened, but that was the first time to go into that tomb as well. So these are all, for me, very special moments, not only as a filmmaker and director, but also just being someone who's in love with the culture and the history, to be able to experience those things firsthand. Derabalis is another place, such strong history. The brother Tony spoke of the Great Queens. That is a story that hasn't really been told yet in terms of the 17th dynasty, and really get into the intricacies of the Ahoteps, the Musa Nefertaris, the Queen Tetisheri. Like, this is a story that we really, really have to get into in terms of like who we are. But it was something that always resonated with me very strongly, that particularly family group, because it set the stage for really the new kingdom, 18th dynasty. But I've really always been, in love with it, and in love with that story, Second Rata. So made sure that we really wanted to come out and tell it in a very significant way, and the role they played. Because a lot of time those men who were fighting on the front lines, they would die very young. and it was their mothers and their sisters who would carry the mantle until the next child was able to come of age and basically rule. So you had these co-regents, and you see the same thing with Queen T, the fabulous Queen T, and Amenhotep III when he died. And right, and Hatshepsut. You see these great African women taking the mantle and keeping things in order until these young boys were able to come of age and take the place of their fathers or their uncles.
The young boys that were chosen by the community. And it's important that what you just said, right? Because the same structure exists in Ghana and other places where the Queen Mother, it is here. Our elder, our beloved ancestor Nana Dinazulu, transitioned to the ancestral realm, and because there was no one that was seen fit by the traditional family that is around him, one of his wives is now the Queen Mother, is now the king. So we have another sister that we're close with, Sister Diambi. She is from the Congo, and she is the leader of her community. So this African structure exists, and is steeped in spirit, and it's important what our sister just said about the divine timing, right? One of the things that makes us as African people differ from all other people, especially Europeans, is our connection to the divine universe, our understanding that everything that we see is not all that exists, right? And so when you talk about what action steps and the importance of the work of Dr. Jeffries and Brother Smalls have done to reclaim the African mind, because like Brother Smalls said in the film, African culture is not the dashikis, it's not the kufis, it's not kente cloth and all of this other exterior stuff first. The foundation of African culture starts with the way that you think and interact with the rest of the world, the unseen and the seen, the universe, the stars, etc. And this is what made the people along the Nile and other great African civilizations great, because they studied all of these things. They studied Sirius A and Sirius B and how they revolve in the universe. They studied the earth as it goes around the sun, the moon as it goes around the earth. They studied the ebb and flow of the rivers. So they had a keen understanding of how the universe works. And this is what enabled them to be so successful, right? Taki, I want to interrupt you with Sister Felicia. The boss is giving me the marching orders to begin to shut it down. So folks asked you a couple of questions. I want to ask our folks that are remaining, do you have any other questions for Taki? And then I'm going to bring on our surprise guest and wrap up.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Curtis, Sister Select.
No, I was just thinking that, like I said, I just, like when I was asking earlier about the question I had about pushing this information, pushing the knowledge forward. I'll be looking for the children's version shortly. I'm going to be looking for that. Right now, I'm working within the elementary schools here in DC. I like to look at elementary age tools. Also, I just want to add the HAPI elementary version, middle school and high school version for all those educators. I like to see that happening. All right. So
he's giving you marching orders, Taki, not questions.
I was telling you, that's where I'm at, because for me it's the youth, and it's I like to take these images and this knowledge and bringing it right to them, second grade, third grade, and right now I'm just taking snaps and bridges and this and that, and I'm putting it together. But it's nothing like when you get a young king who begins to recognize in the third grade or second grade that he comes from something greater, and you do it young. You see, you do it young. But right now, when you look at the actual materials that are out there, it's minimal. So as an educator, I just look for that. I love it myself, but but I'm always looking for appropriate age aspects to embed and inject early on.
All right. All right. Sister Sinette, you had a question or comment for Brother Taki?
Yeah, it was really more of answering the question that he asked earlier about like, where do we go from here? I think Brother Curtis kind of went into it, you know, kind of just creating versions that, you know, are digestible for different kids at different ages. Personally, everybody, I think, first of all, just needs to buy the film. If you've already seen it, just buy the actual title and make your family listen. I don't care. I'm of the thought process that your kids, you know, are only as smart as you allow them to be. So I don't, you know, with my nephew, all right, that word is big. I break it down into smaller words. You cannot read it, and that's just what it went. And in like 1 month of me babysitting, just helping him with homework, he didn't when his reading scores up. But anyway, that's a side note. Breaking it down for the kids and making sure they get it, dude. Just like how at all these holidays, we should just be watching it every single holiday. Every 4th of July, every Juneteenth, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Hanukkah, every Kwanzaa, every Black History Month, and just making sure that they watch over. If they don't understand it right now, so what? They will memorize that stuff, and then once they become 10, 13, they'll remember it and they'll understand what the stuff that they remembered before. So that's one. But another thing was, I mentioned earlier about how I went and looked for the poster at the bus stop in Harlem. I wasn't playing when I saw it on the live. Dude, let's do a selfie challenge. I'm so serious. Let's do a HAPI Film selfie challenge to see who can take the picture in front of the most ones across the 5 boroughs, or just for you to be able to post it, because that's awareness.
Taki, I don't see you taking notes, brother.
Like, yeah. I'm really serious. It's a fun way to do it. I was doing it earlier today, and the woman at the bus stop, who normally probably wouldn't even looked at the darn thing, she's now asking questions, and I'm just telling her because I'm excited and darn off the cuff. Because one of the things about this film is that this is a very complete film. I really didn't see any gaps in this film whatsoever. It defined everything. But you have to, people just have to actually pay attention to it and not just pick apart the pieces that are convenient for their behinds. Like what you were saying, Brother Charles and Curtis, about the part where Baba James Smalls, he defined culture and he defined ecology. We hear the word ecology, but we don't actually know the definition. I know when y'all were doing the different talks earlier prior to the July screening, Taki, you made a very keen distinction between money and economics that I never thought of ever. I would have never thought that, and we use these words, interchangeably. So just even that, making that a topic that we talk of and starting having people understand economics is not money. Like money is not economics, but economics does include money. And that's one of the things that and then pick parts of the film that are interesting to the general populace. Everybody loves money. Tell them that, okay, well, this film actually breaks down the history of money, like how money was actually created and how the principles and values that make money something that we have faith and trust in to actually use, how that came into being and how it came out of being in different things throughout time. I never knew you would see a money prior to this film.
All right, I was gonna give you 1 minute more, Sister Sinette, but are you finished?
We gotta go because I can go.
Yeah, I'm getting the pressure from the boss. So, our other two brothers, this brother and sister, do you have any questions or final comments for Brother Taki before I bring on our special guest?
No, just only thing I would like to add is let's get it going. Right? I mean, we all talk, but get them 10 steps. Like you said, ain't nothing new. We don't have to go out and find nothing. It's already there. The ancestors from Reconstruction to now have already provided what we needed. We just need to do it. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you something, Brother Taki. Started because let me tell you something. Ain't no movement ever started with a whole bunch of people. No movement ever started with a bunch of people. It takes a handful of people to make it happen. And you know what? Just like when Martin Luther King was marching, you know what? Now you talk now, everybody was there. Everybody was behind Martin. But you know what? That's a lie. It was a handful of people that supported that brother when he was doing what he was doing. And for us, it's the same thing. We just need to start and move it. And when we start, the ancestors already got our back. It's going to be successful because we're moved into the new age. We're out of the Piscean age. We're now living in the age. We're moving into the age of knowledge. So that's what we have to do. That's what we got to do. I'm done. Thanks, bro.
Sister Michelle.
Come on. Come on. Come on. I am right here, and you know what? I'm gonna come back home because Florida's, it's not for the birds, but I'm coming back home. But I'm ready. I'm ready.
I often tell
I'm
all my
ready.
New Yorkers to do that.
I'm ready.
I tell all New Yorkers to come back home. But just wanted to say this, as Brother Charles said, the boss, Felicia, the sister, does so much, and she's a huge part of just moving this thing forward, and it's a lot. So people really, we've been like actively looking for people. So if you want to reach out, hapifilm@gmail.com. Be more than happy to, talk to people and kind of see what their strengths are, and maybe we can really start doing some things collectively.
Right.
It's really important that we come into that. So Charles, I'm good.
All right. So I'm going to bring on, I have a final announcement, but I think I'll bring on our guest. He's been right here by my side. I'm at his house. I just happened to be coming to his house to do something else, but when Taki them called me and asked me to help with the moderating for the evening, I said, okay, well, this is another opportunity, and it's important that we hear from him as a person whose theoretical framework was a major contribution to the setting up of this film in terms of discussing how economics, politics, and culture interweave to create a society, create a civilization. He's here right with me. I see he's been making some pyramid analysis notes. I'm not sure if it's for this or if it's for the book he was reading on the African slave trade, but we're talking about none other than the living legend, Dr. Leonard Jeffries. So let me just switch my camera over and we'll get a few words from him.
Nice.
Dr. J.
African power, brother.
All right, what's going on here? All right. And can you see him? Go ahead, Dr. J.
Okay, family, it's certainly always a pleasure to join Africans when they're moving in the right direction and are putting their plans together. Because if you do not have a plan, you plan to fail. And so I'm really excited that Brother Taki and the people working with him have put together this enormous process. It's more than a film. It's a watershed moment for our people to reclaim their history, to deal with the negative processing of our mind, body, and spirit. So we have a chance to rebuild a meaningful African future for ourselves. The symbol of what we're doing is in Senegal. And when I get a chance to speak, I always deal with that symbol. The head of the Senegalese nation was asked by the various other African leaders to come up with a symbol that represented where we needed to go and what the African unity was all about. And so they created the Renaissance, the African Renaissance Monument in Senegal. And I have a chance to travel all over the African world, including Madagascar, as well as Nubia and Ethiopia. But this Renaissance monument represents our future in an enormous way. Image is worth 1,000 words. And if you can take that image and deal with the building process, you can develop a capability of doing something. And so we're talking about systems, putting all this information together taking all of our experiences and synthesizing them is important because we're talking about building systems capability for African global communities. And so that seems to be what this is an introduction to, or carrying it on further. Other greats like Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop understood the significance of the ancients and Egypt and the importance of it, but the support behind him was not there because he was ideologically out on a limb, and many people try to cut it off. But what we're talking about, if we can't put Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, the great Senegalese genius, in the middle of it, we're not going to go very far. If we can't take a brother from Mississippi, Dr. Amos Wilson, who survived the miseducation of Mississippi, who survived the Negro education of Morehouse College in Atlanta, who survived the Jesuit education of Fordham or St. John's, the Catholic education in New York. And he kept moving in his direction of claiming this knowledge to empower our people. And he was able to produce this monumental work after he began his initial work with the developmental psychology of the Black child, and then awakening the genius of the Black child, and then Black on Black crime in for the system of white supremacy. And this is the book I'm referring to that this brother produced, Up from Mississippi, limiting his thinking in Morehouse, because Morehouse was not encouraging, as great an institution as it is, the African. Morehouse was running from the African. Morehouse banned great Africans. Lonnie Shabazz was there. He was banned. Naim Akbar was there. He was banned. Dr. Shabazz, one of the greatest mathematicians, was there. He was banned. Dr. Clark was banned. Dr. Ben was banned. Dr. Len. I was banned from Morehouse. So we have to understand how this knowledge can be constricted in such a way as to be a block. And so, but fortunately, the spirit of Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop and the spiritual power of Dr. Asa Hilliard was able to remove all of that in one fell swoop and one moment. He helped to organize a conference on the Nile Valley scheduled for September 1984. And Jup was supposed to be the centerpiece. But because of the politics and Senegal and whatnot, Jup was on a plane to get here, and the plane had trouble, and so it had to return to Senegal. So Jup was not able to come to this enormous conference in Atlanta. And so they were in real trouble, but there were so many other pieces put together that they said, we've got to go without Jup. And so they did, because they had Dr. Van Sertima, they had Dr. Asa Hilliard, they had the sisters and the scholars there. They didn't have us, meaning those around Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and whatnot, because there was a personal thing that I was trying to work out, which did not get worked out. But everything worked out when the time was moving and flowing. Jup was not able to come, but Asa Hilliard, Dr. Finch, and the rest of them were able to put together a fantastic conference. So much so that the Negro elite of Morehouse was transformed. The dean was transformed. The president was transformed. Without the presence of Cheikh Anta Diop, they were able to complete the mission. Diop is stuck in Senegal, and they completed the mission in '84. And because of our relationship with each other, family relationship, they brought Diop in '85. And so he was given a universal recognition after the conference that he could not attend actually took place, and people saw the value of the Nile Valley and our history. Diop was brought in almost as a deity. He was brought into the Great King Center, where you have the portraits of our great. There's a portrait of him there. And then he was able to move through the US, and finally he met Dr. Clark with myself doing the interpreting in Washington, D.C. That's just a piece of us handling this enormous knowledge, and the knowledge allowed us to move out of the way the personalities, the conflicts, the stupidity, the jealousies, the black-whiteness, the this and thatness. And so I've actually seen the most formidable movement of spirit, because we're talking about something that happened in September '84 with our group in Atlanta. But in the beginning of the year, in February '84, the big brothers, those standing on the African rock, they said, we need to come together. And the person organizing it was somebody called Dr. Malana Karanga.
Wow.
And his partner in organizing was Dr. Jacob Carruthers. So you had the West Coast at Los Angeles in the picture, bonding with Chicago. Jacob Carruthers coming up out of Texas, his cousin being Dr. Asa Hilliard. So here Asa was organizing Atlanta, Jacob Carruthers was organizing Chicago, Malana Karanga was organizing Los Angeles and impacting on the West Coast. And in the middle of it was Dr. J, trying to make sure that everything stayed together, that we synthesized. So the whole concept of pyramid analysis becomes how I operate. Pyramid analysis, using the triangular shape, reclaiming as part of your mindset and your thinking and your processing the Great Pyramids. Because the Great Pyramids have been taken over by another group of people who have a history of taking history and making it work for themselves. And that meant that we had to fight this group to get our pyramids back. And of course, I had to take that on personally when I had to deal with Mayor Koch in New York. I had to tell him, I'm not interested in talking to you until you're prepared to give my pyramids back. He said, what? I said, yes, I want my damn pyramids back. I got a picture of you on a camel riding around the pyramids, claiming them for your ancestors. A picture of Menachem Begin standing in front of the pyramids at the moment of the Camp David Accords when they're trying to work out the relationship between the Arabs and Israel. Menachem Begin, and the headlines are standing in front of the pyramids that his ancestors built thousands of years ago. So other people have seen the need to claim our pyramids and our culture and our contribution. Even the contribution called civilization is ours. The Greeks sat at the feet of the Africans. They didn't produce the culture, they synthesized it. And then they passed it down to the Romans. So we have to reclaim this whole thing that we're talking about is a monumental process. And so, but we have been able to pull our people together, even with the conflicts. That's what I'm trying to say. Pyramid analysis means that we look at the points of the pyramid and link up economics, politics, and culture in a systemic formulation. I'm not playing with the words, but I have to teach 150 students who all have different levels of understanding and wisdom that they're seeking. And so I had to find a unifying formula. And so we did. Economics relates to your ecology. Economics is the control of your ecology. Politics relates to your sociology. In other words, in how you're going to, and just as culture relates to your psychology. So we try to link these terms that usually would scare people. We try to put them in a flow of pulling this Africanness together. We call it Pan-African knowledge. This brother, who has left us a monument school of knowledge, all of these brothers and sisters, including one that I'm reaching for now, but she won't jump up, I'm sure, but that's Dr. Frances Cress-Welsing. And she said, don't cut me short, Dr. Jeffries. I'm in the mix too. And we're talking about our sister, Dr. Frances Cress-Welsing. And this is a sister who is a school of knowledge. Shekanta Diop, school of knowledge. His partners like Dr. Obenga, school of knowledge. Dr. Clark, school of knowledge. Dr. Ben, school of knowledge. Dr. Wade Nobles. Not just individuals, you are hooking up schools of knowledge that will explode upon the world with modern technology and help the African move with power. Economics, relating to your ecology, politics, relating to your sociology, and culture relating to your psychology, the mind. And so that's what it's all about. But like I'm saying, we got limitations. This brother never crossed over HAPI. He never made it to HAPI. Physically, he was moving there psychologically. Dr. Amos Wilson, his education was shortcut because he didn't live to be an old man like myself. or Dr. Clark or Dr. Ben or Dr. Asa or Dr. Jacob Carruthers. He died at a younger age, but he was moving in that direction. But he criticized all of us about this African stuff. I wanted to beat him into the ground. I said, brother, I wanted to tell him, brother, that's the key. This African stuff is the key, not the success that you've been able to make using the European stuff. Once you put the African stuff with the European stuff that you got with the struggle coming up from the South, including Mississippi and Atlanta, that is a part of you. Once you put that together, you're ready to fly. And he was putting it together when he was taken out of here. But he set up a school of brothers around him. And Brother Sababu and the others have been carrying on the legacy of Amos. His works have been produced over the last 25 years. He ain't been here. But his people have taken his work and are still producing. And they're adding the African component that they had no problems with, because many of these brothers come from the Caribbean and they eat African. They speak African. They do African, even though they don't call it African. But the islands of the Caribbean have a residue of Africanness that's very strong, because they didn't have to work cotton. You could have families picking cotton, children picking cotton, grandmothers picking cotton. And so the cotton complex in America was significant, but it affected the growth of the family and the conscience of the family. When you're dealing with sugar cane, when you're dealing with cane, you got to have muscle. You got to have power. You can't have children in the mix. You can't have women in the mix. You've got to have men that can take those cane and cut that cane and then boil it and put it in these vats and produce. Right. There's a whole nother ecology to what the enslavement process in the islands. But so we got to see that this system, and it was a system, it was a global system that affected us differently, but at the core of it all, I don't care what island you come from in the Caribbean, and you can be as light and as bright as you think you are, as close to the English. In fact, they have little Barbados. They claim to be more English than the Englishmen, speaking better English than the people in England, smarter than English, little Barbados. And it really got its fame in the European world because it started out as a little island where nothing was growing. Then they tried to grow tobacco, had white folks brought in. White people were brought in, thousands of white people, to grow tobacco in Barbados. But just as Jefferson and Washington were having trouble with tobacco because it had no market. It was not the crop of the future. And so Jefferson, in order to survive and keep his plantations going, he had to sell lots of slaves, African, like 10 Africans, sell them south to follow that cotton that was moving through the Black Belt. Jefferson sold, he may have sold 100 in lots of 10 or 20 to keep the image of Monticello afloat, etc. And what had happened, 1794, you had the cotton gin develop. And the cotton gin helped to pick that cotton in an automatic way. So you had the industrialization of cotton. So Jefferson and Washington, there was tobacco. That, by the time of the American Revolution, that no longer was the most viable crop, but cotton was. And Americans were able to take the Black Belt that runs through Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana onto Texas, and turn that into one of the most productive economic processes in the history of the world. We don't study these things like that.
Dr. J, well, Felicia is keeping the time on us, and we could certainly sit here for another hour or two or three and get educated by you. Well, relation to the movie HAPI, do you have any, I don't imagine you have any questions. You've been involved with the process very intimately, but do you have any questions? Do you have any marching orders for not just the Taki production team, but for our community in relation to what watching HAPI and what we should do with HAPI going forwards? Yeah, I'll take that.
So, well, hey, Charles, like Dr. J, he was right in the middle of something. So, Doc, go ahead, continue what you were saying.
No, I was trying to say we have to see the transformation of our world, the transformation of us as individuals and personalities, transformation of us as institutions, transformation of us as processes, families, transformation of us in terms of the death and destruction that was imposed upon us. And we are now in the happy bathing waters and changing and transforming ourselves. So I'm saying, but let's be clear. Let's look at these things. Amos Wilson was a great brother. He shouldn't have been able to do what he did because he came out of Mississippi one strike. He went into the Negroes of Morehouse, two strikes. And then he came up to the Big Apple. And so here he is in the Jesuit education. That's a processing of mind, body, and spirit, the likes of which people don't understand. And so he was processed into that. When you have strike one and strike two, and when you lose, when you got strike three, you out. He should have been out, etc. There was a residue of Africanness that was holding him together, and he was ready to move into the big time. The groups following him, his school of knowledge, have produced what I call a blueprint for Pan-Africanism. And that's, even though our brother couldn't do it himself, he moved them. He started to get into the African. He started to come to first world. He started to speak. He used to be critical of us, but he started to dip in his toes into the Happy River, Hudson River, right in the middle of Harlem and New York and New Jersey. So he's heading in the right direction. But bad health, stress took him out of here. Economics, he left the university. I tried to pull him into City College, which I had the authority to do. I put 15 people on tenured lines, and certainly he would have been one. But in the city university system, it's vertical and not horizontal. You can't move horizontally from one institution to another. You can move vertically within your institution. And Hostos College, which was put into the system to service the Latino community, was not going to give this Black brother from Mississippi, Morehouse, his tenure. I would have given it to him immediately, but it was not possible. But so he lost his job. So then he had to go onto 125th Street and set up a bookstore and set up a printing establishment. And that was stress. So he never could get back into the flow of African knowledge that he was about to take hold of. But his team of people have for the last 20 or so years been producing his work as if he was with them. And he is spiritually, he is psychologically, he is materially. So these are the stories that we need to know. This tapping into this Africanness gives us the power to transform our personal lives, our ancestral lives, our lives of people yet to be born. So if I go out of here tonight, I'm going out with the biggest sheet-eating grin in the world. And of course, I got to give Taki his kudos. This is me in the Nile. This is me in Nubia in that great transformative tour he took me on. And there's brother Rusty, his partner, standing next to me. And then there is a more expansive view of the pyramids in Nubia. And there's me with my little yellow thing on, holding up my black power fist. And you see the ruins of the Nubian pyramids, in which the tops have been blown off by the Italians who came to explore and were looking for jewelry, possibly gold, possibly in the pyramids. So we've had to maintain this culture and this knowledge and this history in spite of greed and domination and death and destruction. So this happy film is the new life. You can get baptized in it and grow. You can stand and watch it and stay where you are. You can turn your back to it and die a miserable death without that spark of life and the future hanging over you. The monument that was built, and this is going to be my last statement, the monument that was built in Senegal by the president, who got orders from the president of South Africa and others to build something to represent where we're going to go. We formed the OAU, and I'm looking at Malcolm, and there's a picture of him with his two babies, his two oldest children, Attila and Gamela. And then he's got a smile of contentment on his face, the likes of which you have to appreciate. I have that sitting there. It will stay there until it falls down. And then next to him is somebody grinning like a Chessy cat. And he got that sheepish little grin on his face. And he has one of the babies on his lap. And he has Ilyasha, the third of the 6 babies. And Ilyasha has been a giant, taking the history, traveling around the world, putting her father's work together.
And her mother's work.
And her mother's. And so Betty had to raise those 6 by herself. Of course, Percy Sutton and others giving her a lot of help. Alex Haley helping also. And I had to push Alex Haley to make sure he helped. But here you see a Malcolm who has the look of contentment with his babies. And he was one of the most revolutionary consciousness that we've had. And there you have a grinning Black man, handsome as he can be. He was not only the greatest, he was the prettiest. But he's holding on to Ilyasha like this is what it's all about, the children. So Muhammad Ali, who declared to the world that he was the greatest, and Malcolm X, who let the world know he was the greatest because he was going to push our struggle to its limits. But none of that greatness, the warrior principle that they represented, meant anything serious if they could not transfer it on to the babies. And that's the picture of him. I don't need Muhammad Ali. I do have a picture of him down here somewhere, Charles, where he's boxing and beating up folks. But his stand for principle, that he wasn't going to go to war. The Vietnamese hadn't done anything to him. I turn that there it is, grab it. No, right there, the book. That book right there, turn it. What is it? Oh, no, that's the Liberators. The Ali is down there, but don't worry about it. Brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to say is this is a glorious moment. Even today, seeing the Black folks come together to take our brother, who was a good friend of ours, and of course, he now has become legendary. I'm talking about John Lewis. And of course, his deep roots in the political process involving Kwame Ture and whatnot. And Charles's hand is almost right there where Kwame Ture's book, Ready for the Revolution. Don't take it out, Charles. Just let the folks see it. We got books everywhere here. That's the power. I used to tell the sisters, you may have a hard time getting into Amos Wilson Blueprint for Black Power, but make sure, because we require these youngsters to buy these books. I said, this could be a multi-purpose instrument for you. If you read it, you'll get the knowledge. If you understand it, you'll get the empowerment. And if some Negro on the train is looking at you too hard, and you done already crossed your legs, you done pulled your pocketbook close to you, and he's still looking, hang on to Blueprint for Black Power, because you may be able to, if necessary, strike a blow for African women's freedom and crack that Negro's head open with this a great book by our brother Amos Wilson. So we're on a victorious path, and we need to stay on it. Everything is going to be done to push us off of it. But I've been on it ever since I was a youngster. My wife has been on it. And the people around us, my brother and his wife, and now his nephews, and now, and Taki would appreciate that more than anybody else. But to keep me going, I got Alex Haley's secretary, Pat, who for 7 years was my assistant to help Alex Haley do Roots. And she's standing in front. Her picture is one of the symbols, the major symbols of the Nile Valley. Pat is there. And then here are the 2 pyramids that when Taki took me into the south, into Nubia. These are the sandstone pyramids that were there. And so I have them right next to my nephew's babies, the 3 angels. And I go tonight waving them. I talked to them last night. And they're waiting for Uncle Lenny to come on back to Ohio. So you can take this culture and make it alive. and well. So I'm gonna leave you with this. We're on a victorious path, and people will try to throw us off the path, but it's in the cards. It's in the whatever African formulations. Uh, Greatness is there for us, and so that symbol in Senegal. And I'll end with this. But the president, Wade, put together, President Mbeki of South Africa, and the others said they agreed to what was being done on a volcanic, quiet volcano on the Senegalese coast, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. They have the rise of the black man, and that volcano is symbolic because it's an explosion that we need, a volcanic explosion to impact our universe. And so you have the black man rising, and God knows the black man needs to get off his knees. There's too much shooting crap. There's too much shooting dope. There's too much praying, and stand and carry his weight. And so the black man is standing, holding his child up to the future and leaning on his rock, the black woman. And so this is not a religious monument like Jesus the Redeemer overlooking Rio. It's not a war memorial like the monument that they put in Zimbabwe. It's a people's monument. It's a family. And that's what we are, a global family. And so the sister is there because none of us could go anywhere without these sisters, grandmamas, aunties, and whatnot. It's the collectivity of Africanness, strength, that's our key. That young child is not looking at the father playing with him. The young child is pointing to the future. He's not even pointing north to Europe, where we usually look for sustenance. He's not even pointing east to Asia. He's not even pointing southeast to Mecca. He's not even pointing south to the rest of the African continent. That young child is pointing across the Atlantic Ocean to link up Africans in the New World, North America, Canada, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, including Brazil and the northern part of South America, which includes the Guyanas, the British Guyana, so-called Dutch Guyana, Suriname, and Guyana, the French Guyana. So that symbol of the rise of the family in a physical structure is monumental. But these are modern days. You can go up 1,000 or how many feet steps to get into the base of the monument. You can go in the monument. You can take a 15-story elevator up through the powerful thighs of the black man, his powerful shoulders, and go into his mind and look out on the world. You can go up there and then look out and see the baby right there, and look over and see because you can make a complete 360 tour, and you can see the mother right there. It's the most fantastic, unbelievable structure. And then you can go back downstairs after you're there for, I don't know how many times, 30 or 40 people could fit into the head of the black man. But when you go downstairs, there is room for the children to have activities and plays and whatnot inside the monument. And there is the full history of our people from the beginning of time to now. All of Diop's work taken by his European wife, who was a scholar, and his oldest son, Mbeki, and others, and they put his whole work, his whole tradition of African origin, African evolution, African development is there. I have my picture taken, and I'm standing, over me is Marcus Garvey, and I'm standing with Marcus Garvey's son, Dr. Julius Garvey. And next to Marcus Garvey is Kwame Nkrumah, and next to Kwame Nkrumah is Martin Luther King. That various other African, the story, the history that we're trying to put on film is there, alive and well and resonating power. There's no monument like that. There's no monument conceived to represent all of that. But the explosion of HAPI now with that particular symbol And when I went over there, we've been over several times, but one time we took 350 Black Americans. Jesse and everybody was there. Ben Jealous, everybody was there. Karanga was there. We were there as a family, 350 of us. And then a couple of years later, I was asked to help organize an international conference of scholars from around the world. And so I was asked to, since Molefi Asante couldn't do it, the component coming from America. So that meant 25 scholars to participate, along with 15 possible replacements. So 45 or 50 of us went over to be a part of this international gathering. This was the third international forum on African knowledge and culture. The first one was in 1966, the Festival of Black Arts, and I was there with Rosalind, and we traded our apartment in Abidjan in the Ivory Coast for an apartment in Dakar. And the British schoolgirl who had the apartment, she took our apartment. And so we were 30 days at this enormous festival in which they honored two giants in our community, two Pan-Africanists of significance in our community. And that was Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop on the African continent and Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois coming from Pan America in the Western Hemisphere. They were honored as the two great minds at that great conference. And Rosa and I were there, and it was a fantastic experience. In fact, I have a beautiful picture of her. I don't want to show it, Charles, because she's looking too good. Her legs are crossed, and she got her paintings. She had the first art exhibit in the Ivory Coast at the New Hotel. And so Rosin is looking as good as she can be. And then, of course, I'm sitting on the arm of the chair, making sure that I got in the picture also. But we spent 30 days at this great festival. Rosin has some paintings that she did while she was there of the Dogon dancers and whatnot, because Wole Soyinka, one of the great writers, had produced a great play that included Congress Harbor, a critique of Nkrumah. And there's one of the autobiographies of Nkrumah. So what I'm trying to say is that we have within our HAPI is just going to allow us to link up in a greater way the knowledge that we already have. 66, we were there. Then the next great festival was 77. And Rosin was working on a PhD at Yale, so she couldn't go. But of course, I was able to go. And who was there? Dr. Malana Karanga and his team and others were there. And so we had Dakar 66, Nigeria 77, and then the third festival was organized a few years ago, and we had Brother Smalls had said Molefi cannot, he's not going to be able to participate. You've got to step in. And so I let them know I was available, and they asked me to get 40 or 50 of our scholars to participate, and we got them. It was a magnificent thing. We got Renoko Rashidi. Here he is. He's linking Africa to Asia. And he was the first. The president of Senegal took up his book and he said, I am asking this great brother to open us up. And then here's his great work, Africans in Asia. In other words,
African presence in early Asia. Well,
that's one of his great books. And so while he was there, and that was a shocker for me, I said, wow, I hope Renoko can handle it. And of course he did. But then the president of Senegal got a note that said, Excellency, Mr. President, you have to leave right away because presidents are coming to the airport and you have to meet them at the airport, presidents of other states. Mm-hmm. So he had to leave. And so he said, without even warning, Renoko, he said, I have to go to the airport to take care of some serious business. I'm asking Professor Renoko to sit in my chair and preside over this great event. Nothing like that has ever happened. I said, oh my goodness, I hope Renoko can handle it. And of course he was ready. Renoko stood there and handled that opening session. Then when the president came back, it was time for number two. And the number two was Theopheld Obenga, the partner of Sheikh Anta Diop. But Theopheld is part of us. He's been back and forth to Black America. And Diop is from Dakar, and that's that Senegalese thing. Obenga is from the heart of Africa, the heart of darkness, if you will, or the heart of the light of the human being. He's from the Congo, Brazzaville. But of course, he's used to being in the leadership. He's the partner of Cheikh Anta Diop. And so his session was fantastic. Then the third session, now these are full sessions with hundreds of people, thousands of people, 1,000 people. The third session, I try to rush to hear the person because I knew he was going to be one of the presenters. And I'm always late. And this time I'm glad I wasn't so late, because the person who was introducing this third session of the International Festival was Dr. Wade Nobles. And so Dr. Nobles, of course, he's a brilliant brother. He was there with his wife. And he presented. And Runoko was the star of the first panel. Our brother, our adopted brother, Obenga was star of the second panel. Wade Nobles was star of the third panel. I have a picture of me on the fourth panel. And of course, I was shining bright. But I had Ron Daniels with me. I had Dr. Shelby Lewis with me. I had my crew. I had the brother that Taki and I met, complete head to toe, white turban, white robe. We met him in Khartoum, and he was on the panel. And then one of the final panels was on the women's contribution. And Wade Noble's wife introduced it. She was so high in terms of her presentation. People were almost like we were floating. She took the thing so high. Then who followed her? My wife. And Ralston had to go high. And then who followed her? One of the Senegalese women who's a minister. And she had to go high. These things that HAPI is representing have been happening over these years. I have to make sure I record some of this so that people can see it. Some of it happening in Brazil, some of it happening in the highlands of Haiti, where the spirit of Dessalines and the others is still there, in the highlands of Brazil, where the spirit of Zumbi is still there, where the Babalao and the sister was really the sister, a dozen of these sisters, and of course the leading sister. When I got off, we flew up from Rio to go to the mountains, and that's where the Blacks created their own nation for 100 years, up in the mountains. And so you have to leave Rio or Sao Paulo, fly to Maceió, and then take a train from the coast in Maceió up to the mountains, and then take a bus up on the top of the mountain. And I had such a rickety bus that halfway up the mountain, I told the people, this bus ain't gonna make it, I'm getting off. So I got off of the bus, and half the bus got off with me. And so we walked up the next couple of hours. By the time we got up there, the ceremony was over. The ceremony for Zumbi had taken place. And these women saw me walking up the mountain with a group of Africans following me, and they went and told the Babalao, the spirit of Zumbi has arrived, and we need to do the ceremony over. And they actually did the ceremony over. And then they gave me the Ogun beads, the blue and white beads of Ogun. They didn't know that I had a world struggle over education and knowledge at the City University in New York. And we were going to court. But somehow they read my spirit coming up from that mountain, and they gave me those beads. So when I was in the trial with the Judge Conover in the federal courthouse, I had all kinds of African beads. Taiwo had made a special blue and white robe, a white robe with blue trim just for me, for that. I had Nana Denny Zulu's African symbols in one pocket. I had the spirits from Ghana in another pocket. I had the rings of the priestess who protects the golden stool in my hand.
The Akan people.
The Akan people. And the judge saw me maneuvering these things. He saw me when I had a break and I went into the bathroom. And that's when I put on the Ogun beads. I was spiritually ready for anything the suckers could have thought they could throw at me. And of course, we prevailed. Why? Because we weren't alone. Why? Because we were doing the work of the race. Why? Because we were doing the work of the Creator. So I'm saying that what Taki and the others have done to put the HAPI process in, it puts these other things that Brother Small and myself and others have done, and Wade Nobles, it gives us a platform to stand on and to help produce these this information. Most of you are going to try to redo the Bible again or the knowledge. Wade had a program he put in Oakland called the Hawk Program. And that Hawk Program was to train young men to be warriors using the African knowledge and whatnot. We, of course, in order to protect me, Brother Smalls and others, we said, well, we can't, he needs protection, meaning me. So we formed the Sons of Africa. So 40 to 50 of these young men got special hands-on, including Charles. And that was allowed Charles to make a special trip with me. He's still kind of mad because I'm still beating him up. He went to a dozen slave forcing dungeons from one coast of Ghana to the others. And then we had a chance to go to Ivory Coast and go into the new Jerusalem, the new Nile Valley that was built by Ufwe-Bunny.
The new Wakanda.
The new Wakanda, a new city of God, 4 new universities, the Peace Palace and whatnot. And then the Basilica. So he was a part of the Rosicrucian movement. So Charles was there. I was there. And the only person who could share it with me is Charles. And he had lost his notes. He hadn't even tried to pull it up out of his African mind to do something. But at any rate, you have to, people said, well, Dr. J, well, who's going to testify that you was there seeing all this stuff? I said, well, I had a very personal thing with Charles, but if he can't record it, I went there one time with the leadership of the Black mayors. 350 of us went, including Jesse Jackson. And so Jesse's in a little bit of trouble, but I can go get a testimony from Jesse on the 350 of us there. And also, we took a leadership of ASCAC, the organization we formed to deal with the Nile. And that included Queen Nzinga, our president. It included Regent Adelaide Sanford, our best educator. It included Wade Nobles and whatnot, and his wife. And so I need to get some, while these brothers and sisters are still here, I need to get them recorded on the experience. Because when we arrived in Yamoussoukro, because our bus had trouble, and unfortunately, we were able to put these big blocks under that thing so it didn't roll back down the hill. But we had to wait to get some real help. And so when we got to Yamoussoukro, through the new city of God, it was dark. And so I'm looking around, seeing all these marvelous new structures. And I said to Wade, Wade, if we didn't know where we were, it's almost as if we're on another planet in the 21st century because of all the modernization and all of this and that. But at any rate,
how it looks at night is amazing.
We're on a victorious path, brothers and sisters. Hang on to the coattails of our sister and Taki and the others, and then let your people know, your mothers, fathers, uncles, and institutions. I'm looking at a picture of John Lewis now, Representative John Lewis. We cannot give up. We cannot give in. This is a brother who was leaving us, and he still prepared the way all the way to his transition, and had President Obama giving a presentation that nobody had expected. And so we're on a victorious path.
That's John Lewis. I don't know if you guys can see it good.
Dr. J, we want to say thank you for that. We appreciate you. We love you. And thank you.
Love is not enough. I'll send you my bill.
We'll be more than happy to pay for it. Definitely want to give you a shout out and thank you for making a very special guest appearance on this edition of HAPI Talks. The audience, I'm sure everyone is very pleased and very blessed and honored to have you be a part of it. the same way we feel about you being a part of the film and your teachings in terms of just the pyramid analysis and it being the underlining theme of understanding economics, politics, and culture. Something I've been hearing for a very long time, and it all came together very seamlessly. And we definitely want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all those who were on the panel tonight: Michelle, Curtis, Tony, Sister Sinette B. I want to shout out to Brother Charles for hosting it. All those in the building: King Simon, everyone who else has signed on. So many people. Sorry if I don't, say your name. I apologize for that. Definitely want to say thank you, everyone. Also want to mention that this Saturday, again, August 1st, 7 p.m., is the screening of HAPI. Please go to www.hapifilm.com. Please support the project. All those who are not signed up for the newsletter, we have a monthly newsletter, and to sign up for it, you can go to hapifilm.com and go to Stay Connected, Stay Connected tab, and you can put your information in there, and we will add you to our list and send you you'll be a part of the monthly newsletter. It's all about the HAPI movement and moving this forward. Those who are not connected with us on all the social media platforms, please make sure you do so. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, because every day there's some new information coming out. Stay tuned, stay connected. Please share this information. It's very important. And again, we want to say peace, love, and good night.